Lance Storm joins Impact Wrestling as a producer and coach. Matt Cardona wins the Digital Media Championship. We have an update when it comes to Mickie James and her Royal Rumble appearance. Kenny King rejoins Impact Wrestling. We have the Impact Wrestling ratings from Access TV last week. All this and more in today's Impact Wrestling news. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is plenty of Impact Wrestling news to get into. There's a lot today. There really is a lot of stuff to get into because I've been a bit slacking when it comes to Impact Wrestling news. But we're back, and we're going to be back all this week talking about Impact Wrestling. I'm going to start off talking about a new signing when it comes to Impact Wrestling. Not a talent as such, but a producer and coach, being wrestling legend Lance Storm, because Lance Storm has found himself a new home. On the February 4th, Impact Wrestling announced the return of the Gut Check tryout, which will take place at the Arnold Classic on March 6th. Now, in the press release, it was noted that Lance Storm would be running the tryout alongside Johnny Bravo. Speaking to Figure 4 Daily, Storm confirmed that he is back with Impact Wrestling. He said, quote, producer, coach, whatever you want to call it, Storm said when asked about his role with the company. Asked if he's going to be part of the booking team, Storm said he wasn't, but noted, quote, I'm quite sure Scott is willing to hear an idea or two if I happen to suggest one, but it's not part of my current job description. Now, Storm actually did work with Impact Wrestling in the past. He worked backstage as a producer with Impact Wrestling back in 2019, early 2019, before he signed with WWE later that year. He was then furloughed by WWE in April 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic. This is what he had to say, quote, this is a chance to make the decision I made 2 years ago. I'd done a couple of tapings with Impact as a producer back when I still had my school, and when I decided to close my school, I was looking at options. I talked with Impact, I talked with WWE. WWE made a very eager, good offer. I really liked it in Impact, but both my wife and me liked the idea of the security in WWE, which is ironic considering it ended up being a 6-month gig. Maybe that's karma or destiny telling me I should have made the other decision in the first place. I enjoy the 2 tapings that I did. I like the atmosphere and people, and I've always gotten along with Scott, referring to Impact Wrestling Executive Vice President Scott D'Amore. I'm looking forward to it. It won't be too long. I'll be going to the New Orleans tapings, and I will be overseeing Gut Check. So there you go. Lance Storm is back with Impact Wrestling. Obviously, it's a very good signing by Impact Wrestling. Lance Storm is... he was always a great wrestler. Always a great wrestler. His work in ECW, WCW, even his work in WWE, even though he just got the classic WWE treatment, right, of someone that just being a good worker wasn't enough, right? He had to be given gimmicks, whether that was the un-American, whether that's, if I can be serious for a second, whether that's, dancing around because he was boring, right? Remember the Steve Austin falling asleep at the top of the ramp on Raw, all that kind of stuff. But he's very good at producing. He's very good at coaching new talent. I mean, the amount of people that have come out of the Storm Wrestling Academy in Canada that are working today is pretty incredible. Some of those names are with Impact Wrestling, one being Tenille Dashwood. So there are plenty of people currently working in Impact who actually got trained by Lance Storm, who got their start by Lance Storm. People like Tyler Breeze also came through the Storm Wrestling Academy. There is so many that the list is endless. So a real great pickup from Impact Wrestling, and kind of like what he said. He worked with Impact Wrestling in 2019, and ultimately, he made the decision to go to WWE because he thought it had better security. Impact Wrestling does 1 taping a month, 2 tapings per month, and WWE, it's every single week, and live events, etc., etc. And obviously, nobody saw the pandemic coming, obviously, so he can beat himself up and say, oh, maybe it's karma, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, but it's a great pickup. It's a great pickup for Impact Wrestling, and with them seemingly doing more tapings, they need to have good people on board, and Lance Storm is certainly one of them. And let's talk about Impact Wrestling last week. We spoke about this before when we spoke about the spoilers, but it's now official. Matt Cardona is the new Impact Wrestling Digital Media Champion. The show on Impact Wrestling on Access TV last week opened with Cardona defeating Jordan Grace to become the new Digital Media Champion. Now, the match itself featured a storyline where Cardona hesitated to mount offense on Grace until he snapped at one point, ended up hitting her with a steel chair while the referee was distracted. He then finished Grace off with radio silence for the victory. After the match, Cardona posed with the championship on the top of the ramp and flipped off the crowd. He was later stopped by Gia Miller for comments on what happened. Cardona called this the biggest night of his career and celebrated finally becoming, quote, a world champion in his book. Miller asked what Chelsea Green would think about his actions, and Cardona asked her why she would ask about his spouse at a time like this. He then directed Miller to ask ROH World Champion Jonathan Gresham why he's married to a loser like Jordynne Grace. So obviously, there's a couple of things they've achieved here. They've set up a feud between Matt Cardona and Jonathan Gresham, probably for the Ring of Honor World Championship. They've set up a mixed tag feud with Cardona and Chelsea Green versus Jonathan Gresham and Jordynne Grace as well. So they've achieved a lot of things there. To be honest with you, like I've said before, and I don't want to repeat too much because I have spoken about this here on the channel, but this is the Cardona I've wanted to see in Impact Wrestling. Like, for me, Matt Cardona, when he got released by WWE in April of 2020, I was excited because I thought, man, this was a guy, Zack Ryder, who in 2011 was so over. He was one of the first people to use social media, not the internet, but social media to get himself over with his YouTube, Z True Long Island Story, and his Twitter account, all that kind of stuff. He got over, he got popular. And as Mick Foley puts it, Zack Ryder grabbed the brass ring in WWE, and WWE told him to give it back, and that's basically what happened. They were happy for them to make money off merchandise, off TV, off T-shirts, off headbands, off sunglasses, all that kind of stuff, but ultimately they didn't think that Matt Cardona, Zack Ryder had it. So when he was released by WWE, I was excited. I thought, okay, finally. I think I even made a video. You can go find it of saying he should come to Impact Wrestling. He can be a world champion in Impact Wrestling. He went to AEW, and when he arrived in AEW, it was exciting for a brief moment, but then it dawned on you, he was still being Zack Ryder. He was just, obviously he was using his real name, but he still looked like Zack Ryder. He still sounded like Zack Ryder. He still had the same mannerisms. He still had the same ring gear. He was Zack Ryder, and I don't really think in 2020 and in Impact Wrestling, when he made his debut in Impact Wrestling in 2021 at Hard to Kill, I don't really think there's a space for Zack Ryder nowadays, unless it's as a heel. And it's only really from his work in GCW of being Zack Ryder, being a WWE guy, WWE Zack Ryder essentially in GCW, in that hardcore fan base, turning him heel, that he's just thrived. And as soon as I saw that, I've said it on the channel, as soon as I saw that, I went, I want to see that version of Matt Cardona in Impact Wrestling. I want to see the heel. I want to see the guy that's flipping off the crowd. I want to see the guy that's hated, vilified in GCW. And it took a while to get there, and I don't know if it's a case of Impact Wrestling being slow to pull the trigger. I don't know if it's a case of Matt Cardona wanting to keep what he was doing in GCW special. I don't know. But it's good to see now the proper version of Matt Cardona in Impact Wrestling, because this guy legitimately can be a world champion because he's the most hated guy. He's the most hated guy in GCW, and he can be the most hated guy in Impact Wrestling as well. He's over. He's popular. He's current. This is, we're not even talking about Zack Ryder anymore. We're talking about Matt Cardona now. And I think that's the biggest thing. And given his fact of being the internet champion and still defending the internet championship in GCW, it makes total sense that he would be the digital media champion. So I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, and I'm just excited about seeing this version of Matt Cardona in Impact Wrestling, because this version can do great stuff. Speaking of Impact on Access TV last week, we did see WWE footage on Impact Wrestling's broadcast on last week's episode of Impact Wrestling on Access TV. Tom Hannifan recapped Impact Knockouts World Champion Mickie James' performance in the 30-woman Royal Rumble match. In the process, a piece of WWE footage aired on Impact Wrestling programming for the first time ever. Now, it's curious because obviously that's a hugely historic moment, just seeing not only WWE footage, but the Royal Rumble airing on Impact and Access TV was a big deal, and it's still incredibly historic, and Mickie James should be immensely proud of herself, and I think it was a big moment for Impact. There is some sort of weird story out there that I haven't really seen elsewhere. I'm waiting to see it picked up by other people, not just social media, about possibly WWE's rules, shall we say, when it comes to Mickie James at the Rumble and her being the Knockouts champion and words they could and couldn't use. I don't know if that's completely been confirmed right now. Once it's confirmed, we'll talk about it here on the channel, but we'll leave it at that. But I just wanted to talk about just the footage airing because that's a really historic moment. And we're going to talk about the ratings later on and how that affected it and all that kind of stuff as well. But huge historic moment, and I think it should be pointed out as well. Kenny King is back with Impact Wrestling. We spoke about this when it came to the spoilers as well. But the King is back in Impact Wrestling. Return of the King. Kenny King is back in Impact Wrestling, and he's picked a side on the war between the Ring of Honor Rogues, Honor No More, and Impact Wrestling. Now, following Josh Alexander getting the better of Vincent in a match on Access TV on Thursday, Kenny King returned to Impact by dropping Josh Alexander and immediately aligning himself with Maria Kanellis, PCO, Mike Bennett, Vincent, and Matt Taven Now, in a promo backstage, King said the group is in Ring of Honor because they were lied to and made to believe that honor is real. But he says honor is real in pro wrestling as it is in politics. Now, during his time in Impact Wrestling, in the early portion of the last decade, King captured the X Division Championship. He was also part of the Beatdown Clan faction with Bobby Lashley and MVP. Some would say maybe a bit of a precursor to the Hurt Business. At the end of his time in Ring of Honor, King was in a faction also, but now he has a new crew. So again, we've spoken about this before, so we don't want to go over it too much per se, but Kenny King, I was a big fan of Kenny King, his original work in TNA when he was the X Division champion. Obviously, he can work great. I think his biggest issue was his promos a little bit, but I think he's got a great look and he fits. He fits perfectly. Obviously, he fits with not only the Ring of Honor stuff, but also his history of Impact Wrestling, I think is really fun to play off of as well. So we know what's going to be his situation going forward when it comes to No Surrender, but I'm really excited to see Kenny King back in Impact Wrestling and interested to where they go with it going forward. Let's talk about the Impact ratings, because I said that this was going to be a really curious week because, of course, last week we saw 182,000 viewers tune into Access TV. It was the highest rated show, or highest viewed show rather, on Access TV in close to a year. It was February last year where they did around 180,000, and Impact Wrestling was doing good numbers at the time with the whole Kenny Omega AEW crossover. Obviously, in December we had like 221,000, but even then, after a bit of a drop-off at the end of 2021, we were still seeing, at the end of 2020 rather, we were still seeing big numbers. So last week getting 182,000, people talked about why that was. Was that the WWE effect? Was that because of the Mickie James stuff? Was that because of the Ring of Honor faction? What was going on? And I said a big telling point would be what happened after the Royal Rumble last Saturday and coming into Impact Wrestling. If we saw a big drop off back to essentially where Impact Wrestling was, just above the 100,000s, then we would know that the buzz is over, if you will. Well, Thursday's taped edition of Impact Wrestling drew 114,000 viewers on Access TV, according to Nielsen via Showbuzz Daily. This is down over 37% from last week's 182,000 viewers. Thursday's Impact drew a 0.02 rating in the 18 to 49 demographic. This is down 60% from the prior week's 0.05 rating. Thursday's Impact did not make the cable top 150 with that 0.02 key demo. The previous week's show ranked 144th in the key demo and 125th in viewership. Thursday's Impact audience was down from the past 2 weeks, and the key demo rating was tied with the January 6th episode for the lowest of the year. Now, Impact Wrestling viewership is still staying over 100,000 this week. It's notable because from Thanksgiving until the end of 2021, the show measured at below six figures. So even though it's above 100,000, I guess they might be happy because towards the end of last year, it was not good. It really was not good. Now, Impact viewership for Thursday was down 34% from the same week in 2021, while the key demo rating was down 60% from the episode that aired 1 year ago. So we're still looking at some real issues when it comes to year on year. Now, you could argue, and I'm not making excuses, but you could argue that there was strong competition, but there always is on Thursdays, isn't there? There was the NBA game between the Lakers and the Clippers. You also had Winter Olympics coverage on NBC, which topped the night on network television, so maybe that was a situation too. And maybe it's just a case of, the WWE buzz of the Royal Rumble wore off. People watched WWE's Royal Rumble on Saturday and realized that Mickie James's, part in it wasn't really going anywhere, and they didn't tune in. Or maybe it's a fact of, like I said before, it's a lot of things, I think. I think it's obviously the biggest issue, like I always say, is distribution. Access TV is a problem. But unless they get a new deal, they're always going to be on Access TV because the people that own them own Access TV. So they're not going to go anywhere when it comes to that. But that's a problem. I think, obviously, again, being taped is a problem. Being after the Rumble is a problem because people sort of realised the Mickie James thing wasn't going anywhere. Plus the competition of the NBA and the Winter Olympics, it was always going to be tough. So I think the fact that they're above 100,000, they'll take it. Obviously, like I said, they've got tapings coming up, was it next week or this month anyway? And they'll be hoping maybe for a couple of free agent signings. We'll make a big deal out of that as well. So they'll probably take it. I think it'll be disappointing because they would have looked at the prior week's ratings and said, you know what, we had an opportunity to keep them, and obviously we didn't, and we've got to find out why. But that's the situation when it comes to the ratings this past week for Impact. We have some No Surrender matches made official now. Again, we'd spoken about this previously, but the Bullet Club will be in action at No Surrender later on this month on Saturday, February 19th. It was announced during Impact last week that Bullet Club member Jay White will battle Violent by Design's Eric Young, while the Bullet Club's Gorillas of Destiny will challenge the Good Brothers for the Impact World Tag Team Championships. Impact Wrestling's Executive Vice President Scott D'Amore has ruled that Violent by Design will be banned from ringside during the title match. This comes from the GOD making their Impact debuts on the prior week's episode, challenging Kyle Anderson and Doc Gallows. The in-ring debuts came this past week when they teamed with White and Chris Bay to defeat Jake Something, Mike Bailey, Madman Fulton, and Ace Austin. After the match, the Good Brothers and Violent by Design teamed up to take out the Bullet Club. The lineup for the 5-on-5 Honor No More Team Impact match at No Surrender was also finalized this week. Kenny King has officially joined Honor No More after he made his Impact return by attacking Josh Alexander during his match with Vincent. As I mentioned, that will change, but we won't get too much into that in case you don't want to be spoiled by anything. But we've spoken about this before. I think, obviously, if I was going to predict now, I would say Jay White beats Eric Young. I think that's fairly obvious. I don't see the Bullet Club winning the tag team titles, but then I might be wrong. To be honest, like I said before, given that Impact Wrestling is the lead-in for New Japan on Access TV now, it's absolutely possible that GOD could win the tag team championships, and we could maybe see way more crossover. I mean, I know the Good Brothers are appearing in New Japan anyway, but we could see way more crossover. And I really do think that Jay White and the GOD, I think they're actually around to stay for a lot longer than we think. So I could absolutely see them winning the tag team championships. I could see a situation where maybe, they win the tag team titles, GOD. Chris Bay wins the X Division Championship, and then you get Jay White challenging for the Impact World Championship by going after Moose or something like that. And that's how you build to Rebellion, right? Imagine a full-on Bullet Club takeover of Impact Wrestling. That's a big storyline. So I could absolutely see them going in that direction as well. So keep an eye out for that one, certainly. Finally, we have an update when it comes to Larry D. We'd spoken about this with Larry D requesting his Impact Wrestling release. I'm so used to saying WWE release that I was just talking about a Freudian slip there. But it has been confirmed Larry D is now officially a free agent. On February 1st, Larry D took to social media to announce that he had requested his release from Impact Wrestling. Well, 3 days later, on February 4th, Larry D announced that he is officially a free agent, seemingly confirming he was able to obtain his release from Impact. This is what he had to say, quote, "As of today, I am officially a free agent again in the world of professional wrestling. I'm so thankful for the opportunity Impact Wrestling provided in my life. I'm ready to step through doors never imagined. AEW, MLW, NWA, I'm ready to step through those doors." Now, Larry D initially signed with Impact in December 2019. He is best known for his tag team Triple XL alongside AC Romero, who was able to request to gain his release from Impact Wrestling in October 2021. So, like I spoke about previously, do I see Larry D in AEW? Unless it was AEW Dark at Universal Studios, and I don't think he'd win. MLW, probably the same. Like I said, I think NWA, I could absolutely see him in there. I think that they are a bit of a throwback in terms of everything, but we know how Billy Corgan kind of views professional wrestling. He does view it as bringing it back to the 70s or the 80s in the sense of they do studio wrestling. They want big guys in there that aren't necessarily obsessed with flips and all this kind of stuff. So I could absolutely see him working in the NWA. I could see him doing a lot of indie stuff as well. So we'll have to wait and see, but Larry D is now officially a free agent. But look, guys, as always, be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts as well on the stories covered in today's Impact Wrestling news. I'll be sure to respond and reply to some of them. But as always, there'll be plenty of Impact Wrestling news coming later on this week. So be sure to like and subscribe. And I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.